Hey, everybody. Welcome to what I'm going to call the Box Office Podcast. The name is a work in progress. Today I'm joined with Princessa.
Hi, guys.
And we're going to be going over the box office performance of some really popular movies in June. So the first thing I wanted to talk about as it pertains to like the movies that came out this June was that the like kind of franchises that people have known about and have kind of grown up with, they got smoked. They got absolutely smoked by a bunch of indie horror, which has been absolutely killing it. I think most people, when they think of summer box offices, they don't they think of action blockbusters, you know. Yeah. They don't really think of the movies that are performing really well right now. Obsession and Backrooms have gone crazy. There was I think it was the it was this article by the Wrap. So Obsession is actually it's 5 weeks into its box office run. And it's having a better fifth week than pretty much any other summer movie in the history of the box office.
That's crazy.
Yeah, better than Avengers, better than Star Wars, better than Spider-Man, better than pretty much anyone. In fact, there was just a little bit there when Mandolorian and Grogu came out. About a week behind Obsession. And it took Obsession's number one spot. And then a week later, Obsession gained it back.
Wow.
That movie cost 200 times what Obsession did. And so to see it in a week get back to number one was, if I'm Disney, I'm not happy. That's all I'll say. So, and that's not to say that Backrooms is less impressive only because it was a little more expensive. But in terms of profitability, both of those movies are making their production companies very happy, I would have to imagine. Yeah. There's also so the LA Times reported on this thing, which I had never heard of this term before, but the digital natives, the digital native movies. So Amazing Digital Circus was Fathom Events' biggest opening ever for anything they have ever brought to theaters. So I think that's pretty unprecedented as well. Looking more into the like what a digital native like piece of media is, it's kind of what you'd expect. It's like the intellectual properties of all of these like films and stuff have come from like the internet, which is kind of exciting. So something like the Backrooms would have been a digital native kind of intellectual property. You know, that's where it got its start. Yeah. Was on the internet. Five Nights at Freddy's. Yes. So and now the Amazing Digital Circus. So what's really interesting about moviegoers at this point is that there is a sizable cohort of people who will go to see movies about these things based off of internet culture, which we've never seen that before. Mostly because we've never gotten to the point where the internet was as widespread and as accessible. Yeah. But also because Hollywood's a pretty slow-moving industry. And so there has never been a point where they thought to themselves, let's give $10 million to, like, you know, this internet thing and see if people will bite on it. And they have. They really have. All of these kinds of digital native things are just, they're popping off. They're going crazy. So I have Vera Wild here from Council of Geeks. So she was a critic that I like reading some of the Rotten Tomato critics, right? But
Yeah.
she comments on the Amazing Digital Circus, and I quote, "It feels like something I couldn't have predicted, not because it was trying to be twisty, but because it was made by people with perspectives and artistic instincts that I'm not used to seeing," end quote. So that really stuck out to me, because I think the conventional wisdom, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this. I think the conventional wisdoms of most movies, though, for the longest time has been kind of, it's been kind of safe, boring, not boring. I don't know. That's subjective.
Okay,
That's subjective, but very, very safe. For the longest time, Hollywood knew the movies that made it money, and they did those. There was no need to have any artists that had kind of artistic instincts that were really, really out there. But of course, when people start kind of uploading these like short films to YouTube and stuff, all of the sudden, they had a platform to kind of to show off their own artistic perspectives and instincts, and people like what they saw. And that has really kind of uprooted some of the business strategy behind, okay, what gets people to go to movie theaters? So they did a lot of exit polling across the country for the month of June. So 80% of filmgoers, about 80% of filmgoers were under the age of 40. 75% were under the age of 35. So, that's crazy to me.
That's crazy, yeah.
Because I think the conventional wisdom would have been that people in their, under the age of 75% being under the age of 35. So we're talking mid 30s and younger are the majority of moviegoers at this point. It's actually not older people. It's actually young adults. So that has really changed kind of the strategy behind, okay, who is this like target demographic?
Yeah.
It's young adults. It's a lot of young adults. Now that comes with a couple of caveats that I'll get into in a minute. But so in order to get young adults to go and watch these things, you have to have young adults involved in the production of these things. Because otherwise, it's pretty clear that Gen Z has tastes that older folks don't have. So if you want them to come, you have to kind of speak their language, so to speak. And that has kind of led to, because I know before we did this, you were like looking up, Obsession and Backroom directors, Curry Barker and Kane Parsons, and you were like, they're like 20,
Kane is 20, Curry is 26.
Right.
That's insane to me.
Yeah. But I think that makes sense, I guess, when you think about it, right? Because if the idea is that Gen Z people want to see Gen Z artists kind of get their message out, it wouldn't feel authentic coming from anybody but a 20-year-old, pretty much. But I agree. That is crazy. Another thing that's worth noting is that these smaller indie horror movie generally is what they are. These indie horror production companies tend to be really, really highly mobile in a way that these kinds of like massive like Disney, like Warner Brothers, they tend to be a lot more mobile in ways that those studios aren't. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot less like excess. There's a lot fewer like cooks in the kitchen. Fewer people work at the companies. Fewer people are making these kinds of decisions. there's fewer levels of focus groups and kind of like, okay, well, now I got to go to like this meeting and like talk to people. It gets approved here. Then I got a lot less like bureaucracy. So that allows these kind of smaller studios to trend chase a little bit better. So that's another thing to consider when you're thinking about, why the heck can these bigger studios with all the money it feels like in the world, why can't they keep pace with, companies that are 1/100th of the size? Yeah. And that has a lot to do with it. So I did say that there were caveats, though. Mainly it's family films that drive older folks to go and see movies, and younger folks, who wouldn't typically see any movies themselves because of, obvious issues of they can't get to the movies, or, they're not allowed to see them. They're not of age. So, it's not a total pity party for Disney, because I'm sure that in July, when like Toy Story and Moana come out, they're gonna make like a ton of money. They're gonna make a ton of money, but
they will just
yeah. And it's not to say that older folks don't go either. Specifically, you see a lot of like musical biopics. I don't know if you've like gone and seen like the Prince movie or the Elvis movie or the Michael Jackson like biopic.
I saw Elvis. I really liked it.
Song Sung Blue. I don't know if you've seen that one. Mm-hmm. It's about a Neil Diamond cover band. Tons of old people really, really enjoy seeing these biopics about these like famous 60s, 70s, and 80s like musicians, but just artists in general from their like era. So obviously like those are and you can't forget about like Top Gun. I don't know if you remember Top Gun Maverick when it came out a couple of years ago. Older folks who remembered seeing that original Top Gun, they all went to go see it. They all went. So they're not above going to the movies. They just have to, just like with Gen Z, they have to they have to feel like our tastes have to be catered to. So movies can still drive anybody to the movies as long as the tastes are being met. And in fact, I think one of the drawbacks of Mandalorian and Grogu is because there's just not anybody that recognizable for that demographic. So if you're like an older adult right now, Mandalorian and Grogu didn't have Luke or Han or Leia or Darth Vader or any of those like iconic characters that they would have grown up seeing. So there's less nostalgia there. They're like, yeah, I know it's a Star Wars movie, but it doesn't have anybody that I know in it. So it's like, yes, it's a Star Wars movie. Like there are X-Wings in it. Yeah. There are like iconic Star Wars planets that I recognize. But this just doesn't do it for me because we don't have, I don't see any of the characters like I grew up caring about. Yeah. So I did want to speculate a little bit on what this kind of means for the future. I think back to, and this is not ancient history, but Weapons in the summer of last year did something very similar to a lot of the indie horror we're seeing this summer, where, it was a relatively unknown movie, and it just caught fire. I mean, like, kind of the word of mouth carried that movie, like, to way, way, way more people watching it than anybody could have, like, anticipated. Because the thing is with most of those horror movies, I don't know about you, I didn't really know about Obsession. Like, it didn't have any, like, TV spots or anything like that. I know it had a very short trailer. if you're like watching the previews.
Yeah.
But you have to actually be at the movies already to see those previews. So just the fact that so many people kind of learned about it and decided, oh, that's something I need to see. Despite the fact that the film was not really advertised that much is pretty crazy. And Weapons was a lot the same way, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think I recall a single, not that I watch too much TV, but I don't think I recall a single TV spot.
Neither do I. I only knew about it because of like the internet.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
I was like on TikTok and I would like see an ad for it or like people talking about it.
I think that's part of the new way of doing business. Is that if any money is being spent on advertising, which for some of these companies they just don't spend any money on advertising. Mm-hmm. If any money is going to be spent on advertising, it's going to be spent advertising on a platform like YouTube.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be spent on
TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. So another kind of weird phenomenon is like the Barbenheimer.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember Barbenheimer?
Yes.
So Barbenheimer was really, really strange because those were they're not indie movies and they're not horror movies, but what they were kind of odd. And what I mean by odd is that one of them was a movie based on a toy marketed specifically towards like young girls.
Yes.
And the other one was an R-rated biopic.
Mm-hmm.
That was 3 hours long. Neither one of those made any, because the traditional wisdom in Hollywood, if you didn't know, is that you typically market towards like teenage boys, not teenage girls.
Yes.
I don't know why they've always done it like that, but they've always done it like that. And so Barbie was a change of pace. And Oppenheimer just shouldn't have worked because who wanted to see that, right? You know what I mean? Like, but of course they were both like hugely ambitious and kind of huge gambles because nobody had ever seen either one of those types of movies doing super well in a summer box office environment.
Yeah.
But then they both did really well, like really, really well. And so that kind of makes a lot of these studios think, well, okay, the way we used to make money is not quite working anymore. This is odd, right? People are going to see indie horror and these kind of digital native intellectual properties. They're going to see things geared towards girls and younger people. They're going to see these like experimental like biopics. The action blockbusters are like way down. It's just a really confusing time if you're on the business side of things, trying to figure out what the heck people are going to see anymore. Yeah. And I know especially, right, like, again, we're not going to feel bad for Disney because I'm sure they're going to do really well in the month of July. But they have a lot riding on, especially Spider-Man in July. And then Doomsday in December. Because if neither one of those does well, they're in a lot of trouble. Mainly because not only are the production budgets of Marvel movies and Star Wars, but especially Marvel movies, their production budgets are like gigantic. Like I was telling you earlier that you could make something like 200 Obsessions for like one Star Wars. You could make like 300 or 400 Obsessions for like one Avengers movie. It's crazy. And the conventional wisdom has always been that you spend the same in advertising that you do on production, which means that to break even, usually the movie has to make twice what it costs to produce it. But they don't want to see the movie just make twice what it cost. Yeah. Like they would like to see it make, they like to see the multipliers, like 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. But part of the problem with the movies getting as expensive as they are and I've got the graph here. I don't know where I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna put it somewhere. The post end game box office. But part of the problem with these movies getting as big as they have been getting is that it's really hard for them to be profitable. When people stop, when the kind of, I don't want to say mania, but like when the hype dies down around it, it's really, really hard for these kinds of movies that cost like this insane amount. It's really hard for them to keep going that route. You know, and that has continued to be kind of a problem. Like, I don't know if you remember Avatar, Fire and Ash, that just came out. I believe that was last year. There were people saying that it grossed like a little more than $1 billion at the global box office. And people said that $1 billion was actually not what Fox or like Disney, Disney Fox, because they're a merged company now, but not what they wanted to see from that. They wanted to see it do more than that. Which, if the companies are becoming dissatisfied with $1 billion gross at the box office, there's a good chance the movie is too expensive. because that has never been a thing before. When a company is upset by $1 billion gross. Like that's the movie is too expensive. The movie is just too expensive. And it also means that it can't fail. You know, so not that it did fail, but Backrooms didn't fail. In fact, it did. It's like, I believe it's A24's biggest movie now. It just beat out last year's Marty Supreme for their highest grossing movie, which was another, like that's another like experimental sports biopic. So, you know, people are into the experimental stuff, but so assuming Backrooms didn't do super well, you know, hypothetically, it wouldn't have been the end of like A24 if the movie didn't do super well.
Yeah.
They say, okay, well, that's not great. We lost some money on that one, but you know, it was pretty cheap. So the fact that we didn't make all of our money back is not a big, you know, not that big of a deal. Whereas, you know, I know Spider-Man coming out here in July has got a price tag of when you factor, like I said, when you factor in the marketing, it's somewhere north of probably 500 million.
Wow.
So, or it's hovering somewhere slightly higher or slightly below there, but you know, what happens if that movie doesn't make its money back? You know, it will, because it's Spider-Man. But what happens if that movie doesn't make its money back? I mean,
that's insane. I'd be mad.
I mean, you'd go out of business.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, like, so every single movie that kind of a lot of the big production companies are putting out now, they're all make or break because they're just too expensive. They're just too expensive. If they don't have, you know, I know that, and this is speculative because we don't know the total. We don't know the totals, but allegedly Avengers Doomsday, which is going to come out in December, has, you know, the cast of Avengers Doomsday is already getting, you know, just the cast before they do the shooting, the special effects, the sets, anything, the advertising, anything. The cast costs $250 million for that project.
Wow.
They spent $250 million on the cast alone before they spent anything else on, like I said, anything else that you need for the movie, just to get the actors. $250 million. So, you know, that movie is probably going to get to the point where, you know, $1 billion, just like what just like what happened with Avatar last year, $1 billion might not be enough. They might be looking past 2 billion, because that's what Endgame did, somewhere north of 2 billion, which I think that's a really dangerous game that they're playing at this point. To say, okay, so this movie has to be, and the highest grossing movie of all time, I believe it is Avengers Endgame, right? So they're essentially in the making, producing a movie that they're like, okay, in order for this to make the profit that we want it to, it has to break the record that we previously set.
Yeah.
Which a lot has changed over time. A lot of years have passed between the last time that they did that. Can they do it? Maybe. Probably. I just think that's really, really, well, it's incredibly dangerous to do. It's incredibly dangerous that a single kind of bad movie can put the whole production company out of business now. Because on a per film basis, they're getting too crazy. They're getting way too crazy. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Honestly, no.
No?
I don't even know.
It's too much. It's too much. Because they just can't they can't just walk off a loss in the same way that some of these cheaper movies can walk off the loss. Walking off a $1 million failure and a $500 million failure or like $1 billion failure is it hits different. That's all I'll say. So yeah, that's the state of the box office in June of 26. Indies are going crazy. The quote unquote digital native movies are going crazy. The biopics and the kids movies are going crazy, but the traditional action blockbusters are not doing very well. And we'll have to see what's in store for us in July, because there's a lot of summer left, and summer is the big movie time of year. And so, like I say, Disney's probably not out of it yet, because they're gonna make a lot of money off of Toy Story, a lot of money off of Moana. Yeah. But we'll just have to see where it goes. But as for June, a relatively quiet June, as far as summer movies go, but indies have just been killing it, and young creators who have gotten their stuff into theaters have just been killing it. So yeah. That's some good news if you're a young filmmaker. Some really bad news if you're one of the mainstay companies that have been doing films for years and years and years. Yeah. But so have you got anything else to close us out here?
What are your predictions for the movies in July?
Well, I think Spider-Man and Toy Story make all the money in the world, because they're two different demographics, but I think they make all the money in the world. They could not, right? Because it's a very dangerous game they're playing. Like I said, they're both very expensive movies, but I think Disney will see some of the losses that they took in June from poor performances from like Mandalorian and Grogu. I think they're still gonna end. They'll still end their summer movies in the green probably off the backs of a super established franchise like Spider-Man and off of like a kids movie like Toy Story.
Yeah.
Because both of those just tend to print money. So, but we're gonna end this episode. That's the June box office, and we'll see everybody again in July. Take care.